we'd like to welcome Heather Little from Canada, correct?
Yes,
From what part of Canada?
Southern Alberta.
Southern Alberta, excellent. And you're in the hot seat tonight, but that's not a bad term. You're gonna have a nice conversation with us. Don't be nervous. And then tonight we have Monica Phillips, and you're from Chicago, right?
I am from Chicago.
Chi-town, nice.
Yep.
And then we have Terry Wilson. She's from Washington,
Yes.
Washington State, that is.
Yeah, not DC. That's not really a state.
That's true. They're trying to make it a state, but we'll see.
I'm not always stupid.
You're never. You just pretend, and then you just nail everybody with your knowledge and wisdom.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Your secret weapon.
She's a knowledge shark.
Well, excellent. I think we're going to have a good discussion tonight. For those in the audience, if you're interested in looking at past episodes, we do have a YouTube channel. Just go look up Flameless Fireside. Just search that on YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel. You could click on the little bell to get you, it'll let you know when new videos get uploaded. And you can go there and look at past episodes. And then, and of course, I think the live stream stays up a little bit up on our page for a while and then it somehow disappears. So, but anyway, there's ways to look for us online. So, but tonight we have a really good topic for tonight, right?
Wait. Were you going to explain our theme tonight?
Oh, go for it, Terry.
Oh, me? Why me? Seems so
You
scripted.
reminded me.
So we, the hosts, have decided to do themes on Sunday. So today,
We coordinate
Corey-
our clothes.
so today Corey is in did you pick Manchester?
Manchester United.
Okay, Jersey. Monica is the referee, because in case Corey and I start fighting. And I am actually like a busted can of biscuits right now in my old national jersey.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
And it fits, but hey, I still look like a busted can of biscuits.
Oh, Terry.
Just saying.
So we're a soccer theme tonight.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yes.
got my
Okay.
soccer ball out to like put on my.
I think that would be good.
That would be,
Terry needs to get her trophies out, put them around.
yeah.
Right?
They're in boxes. I don't have those out at all.
Yeah, Heather's like, yeah, I would get my, Maple Leafs hockey jersey out of the closet, but nobody told me.
Yeah. So anyway, so Heather, tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about yourself.
I'm Canadian, and I don't say a as much as I would say hey. And you would say it if you're looking for confirmation of something you're saying. So you make a statement and you're looking for a positive response, so you would add a or hey in the end of it. That's it.
So you say, hey.
I'm an Alberta girl, born and raised, but I love Alberta's wide. Like there's mountains and there's prairies and there's foothills. There's lakes and there's like really far north Alberta, which is gorgeous forest. So it's really diverse in landscape. But I love it all. I have 5 siblings. We're all very close in age. There's first 4 and 4 years. My mom said she cried when she found out she was pregnant with the 4th. And then she kind of hid her belly from the neighbors because she was so embarrassed to have so many kids so close. Like really close. My sister and I are 13 months apart. And my brother and I are 14 months apart. I loved my childhood. Like I feel like I'm one of the fortunate ones that just loved my childhood. We were poor, but I didn't know it. We got to stay out. One of the street lights come on. That's when you go home. We spent days in the outdoor swimming pool. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah. And we would walk to my mom would do up our ice skates and we'd walk to the outdoor skating rink on our ice skates down the street to get there. And we just stay out there all day. So it's just a beautiful childhood. My siblings and I played a lot together and just a lot of make-believe, a lot of climbing trees, a lot of, throwing things off of sheds onto the people that were walking down the street below, like just trouble and fun. I moved when I was 11 when my parents divorced, which was interesting because, when you look back on that, it wasn't a traumatic time. There was no contention. There wasn't a problem. It didn't really cause much of a hiccup in my life. It just kind of played out. So we moved to BC. I lived there for 3 years.
British
Yeah.
Columbia, for those who don't know what BC is.
Sorry, British Columbia, out in the Okanagan shoe shop area. Gorgeous, really, really pretty. It's where my maternal grandparents were from. It was a really sanctuary. Like living in the mountains like that was just, it feels very good to have those mountains around you.
Mountains are just heavenly. Like
It is.
it's, and
I know.
being up in the, I grew up in the mountains in Colorado. So
I know. So
yeah.
it's expensive to live there. Like I think the tax is like 15%. So BC also stands for bring cash. Because it's costly, but it's worth it if you live in the Okanagan shoe shop. But if you lived anywhere outside of that, which I did, it's not as worth it.
So I missed it. What part of BC did you live in?
Salmon Arm, shoe shop Okanagan.
Okay. So I used to go up to Kelowna and Penticton all the time to play soccer, and New Westminster and Surrey and Vancouver. So yeah, it's a beautiful area. Love that.
Oh, wow, you're familiar with my sister. I still have a sister in Kelowna.
Okay. Yeah. Kelowna reminds me of an area in Washington State that's the Wenatchee Valley. And when I went up there for the first time, I was like, this is like the Wenatchee Valley. It is crazy. But I know that they don't have that Fred Flintstone theme park anymore. Not for a while, but yeah, we used to go between games. We used to go to that. I don't know why, but we did.
No.
So I love BC. I've been there before. I've actually went up and skied up in Blackcomb, up in that area.
Okay. How do those mountains compare to like Utah mountains? I've always wondered.
So they're a lot more like California mountains.
Okay.
So you do get a little more wetter snow. It does get icy. Like it could kind of like be a little sunny in the daytime, kind of get slushy, and then it freezes when it gets cold. So Utah definitely is different than Utah and Colorado, which is very dry and powdery, but it reminded me a lot like Tahoe. So when I skied in Tahoe, I was born in Reno. So when we skied in Tahoe, it was very similar to like Lake Tahoe. So I'm sure Terry skis in Washington. So it's probably about the same as Washington, right?
Actually, I don't ski. I snowboard, but yeah.
Okay. When I went there, I was a skier. When I moved to Utah in 2005, actually, then my boys wanted to learn. And so I was like, well, since they're on the bunny slope learning, I'm going to take snowboard lessons. So I did transition over, but I kind of do both still.
Yeah.
Snowboarding is dangerous though. I took some spills that were rough.
Yeah. I think I've kind of reached that age where I'm like, is this worth it anymore? Because I in my head, I think, oh, I can totally do that. And I'm like, nope. Not when I snowball down the hill.
Well,
I've become a little bit more risk averse, like as I've had kids and stuff but I think snowboarding and skiing, or I don't know, like skiing, you have all different appendages that could go anywhere. At least snowboarding,
Yeah.
the boots are in one place, but.
So boy, when that snowboard goes awry, it will whip you into the ground.
Oh yeah. So
nobody's business.
Yeah. The reason why I started snowboarding is because I actually am a competitive wakeboarder. And so I was like, oh, in the winter, I can just, transition just fine. But the weird thing about it is it's so different from each other. I'm like, where's the boat? I want a quick pull up.
Oh yeah.
That was the hardest part. I always have to flip around and face the mountain. And then I get up and then I'm like, man, this sucks. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, I'll probably switch back to skiing. I mostly did it when I was in Utah because the boys, that was like our thing, like we'd go up to the ski slopes for half a day because it was like 40 minutes away. We'd go up to Brighton because Brighton had both skiers and snowboarders, and they had a half pipe. But that's the problem with me is I'm like Monica. I have to be risk averse, but never even start it, because the problem is I start to feel comfortable and I'm like, and then my brain still thinks I'm in my 20s.
Yep.
And so, but my body's like, no, you're not. And so I get just like mountain biking, right? I was like, oh, dude, it's all coming back. And then boom, crash.
Yeah.
And I'm like, great. Oh, I hurt my shoulder. Ouchie.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing for me is by more risk averse, it's not going off cliffs and not doing as many jumps. And I mean, I tried to go a little bit slower, but I'm a speed demon. I love speed when I ski.
Yeah, that's
So.
my problem. How about you, Heather? Are you a skier or a snowboarder?
Ski.
Ski?
I did sign up for a snowboard once in Switzerland, but things happened. The trip got canceled, but I did want to try it. So it's still on my list.
Okay. Well,
It's
excellent.
snowboarding, you can learn a lot quicker. Like you can get
Yeah.
good at snowboarding a lot quicker than at
you can.
skiing. But the first like few days are rougher than the first few days skiing.
Yeah, I've got my 2 daughters that snowboard. We've got the gear in the garage and things, and they had a rough couple days, but they've been out many times since, just the 2 of them, and they have a blast.
Nice.
I will say for me, like I'm naturally athletic, and I was like, oh, I got this. It's not a big deal. And I was like, nope, I'm signing up for a lesson. This sucks.
Oh yeah.
It's having
I
lessons
took
is
lessons.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my boys were taking lessons and I'm like, okay, I'll try it. So I rented the board and rented the boots and it was good to get the lessons because it really, there is a trick to snowboarding. It's like, you got to stay on the edge.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, never go flat. If you go flat,
No.
the board gets all
You're
squirrely
done.
and you fall.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's called catching the edge. It'll get squirrely and catch an edge and then you'll like cartwheel. So
Yeah, I've gotten to the point now where I can feel my board starting to catch and I just switch my boards. So then I can just ride switch down the hill. And there's sometimes it looks really smooth, but in my head, I'm panicking because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to totally just bite it. Yeah.
So you, so Heather, you grew up in Canada. When did you get married?
You missed like half my life. Slow down.
Okay, so let's go back to like street lights, and, chasing fireflies, and like the whole like scene from Stand By Me.
Yeah. So I lived in BC and my mom remarried there. So I was 14 when I moved back to Alberta because my mom remarried. She married a guy who put himself through pharmacy school with his 5 kids that he raised by himself. So we all got together in one big happy, one of those blended family scenarios. And I gained 5 stepsons. So it was 11 children. 9 were teenagers at the time of marriage. So 11 children between the ages of 8 and 18. It was a lot. And we all lived in the same house. It was this massive house. I don't know how they found it, but like 2 washers, 2 dryers. I think there was 5 bathrooms, 2 dining rooms. We had 3 fridges. It was massive because of everybody. So that's where I met my ex, was when we moved there. We met at 14 years old at seminary.
Whoa. You guys were high school sweethearts. Awesome.
But,
That's cool. Yeah.
The funny thing is, though, my younger sister would catch a ride to seminary with us. And she was too young to be in seminary, but she wanted the ride because if not, it's about a 40-minute walk. But she would sit outside in the hallways and he would sometimes skip and wander around the church and he would see her and try and chat with her and talk it up. But she was very flat affect in trying to respond to him because she's like, who is this guy? And then after seminary, he would see me and I would talk back and forth and converse with him. So he didn't realize that we were 2 different people. He thought he was getting like a split personality thing going on. He didn't realize we were separate. And then he thought we were twins for the longest time. Then he figured out that we weren't twins. And then he figured out we were actually just sisters.
Ah.
So we looked a lot alike. And throughout high school, lots of people would just say, hi, Heather, or hi, Crystal. And even it happened at church today. I was thanked for what I was doing at sacrament meeting. And the bishopric member knows my sister and he thanked Crystal instead of me, and the whole congregation just laughs. So that was interesting childhood from like my teen years with a step family. Then I graduated high school, went to school to become a paralegal and did that for a few years, got married at 21 and moved every 2 years. About the longest stint we ever had was 3 years, and that was even overseas. My oldest, when she graduated high school, had been to 9 different schools from K to 12.
Wow.
So
why did you guys move so much?
My ex's employment, his advances,
what?
career advances often required a move.
Oh, okay. You guys went to different places around the world?
Yeah, only once. We went to Holland, like the Netherlands, for 3 years. He took a global lead position, and the company's position, like the company's global headquarters, was out of The Hague. So we went there for 3 years. And I would always say that he worked out of there and like lots of global countries that he worked from, and I lived there. So we had 2 very different experiences during those 3 years.
Oh, wow.
The first 6 months of moving to the Netherlands, we were in a transition house, and then we got a different house, and I was learning to drive there. I was learning all those, like, how to do life. And he was traveling for 80% of my first 6 months overseas.
Oh,
So I
wow.
had to figure it out solo. And like, my kids were asking me questions. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what food to buy. I didn't know how to drive anymore. I didn't know how to buy them clothing because the clothing sizes were different. I didn't know how to
Oh,
work
that's
my
true.
washing
Yeah,
machine. I
European
didn't know how to
clothing
work my
sizes are
dishwasher.
like wild. Yeah, and the washing machine. Do they have dryers there, or do they just hang everything? Because that's
They're
usually...
condensers.
Oh, okay.
I had a condenser, and I didn't know I had a condenser. Like, it's just, there was so much that I had like lots of support back in Canada, but I felt like my friends there were kind of just going on with their lives, and I felt like I got a slingshot backwards, where I had to figure out what flour is. Like, there's hard red wheat and soft red wheat, and which one worked, and just what is butter? What does it look like? I accidentally bought fry fat. I thought it was butter. There's just a whole lot of things that I had to figure out.
Oh man, that's
It's a huge
crazy.
adjustment.
Huge adjustment. Yeah. I would like threaten my kids with an inch of their lives if they dare said anything while I was driving. Because it's fast traffic, and it's narrow, and it just goes.
Monica,
130 is your common. 130 is your common speed on a highway.
Mhm.
yeah, Monica could totally take that. No problem.
I could do it now, but initially I was a mess.
Yeah, she's tried to kill me in the Virgin Islands several times.
What are you talking about? You mean I saved our lives and drove so safely and wonderfully? That's what you mean.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
I'm
the
still
road,
pale.
Terry. Wasn't me.
That sounds like quite the adjustment. Okay, so I have to ask.
Yeah.
Like like for us girls, we have hair dryers and curling irons and that kind of stuff, and they all have the little different outlets. So you figured that out when you got over there, or
you just buy it there. You just buy all
You
your.
just buy it there, yeah.
Because you could use the converters and the transformers and things, but they eventually just blow the engines out anyways. Like, they blow the motors and you're done.
Wow.
I used like my KitchenAid thing.
Uh-huh.
I used over there because I didn't want to buy a new one of those. And you're supposed to have like 12 speeds, but using the transformer, these big heavy things that you kind of plunk on the kitchen counter, I only had one speed. It was just on and off. And I thought, if it ever comes back to Canada, I wonder if it ever worked. And it does, but you just buy everything electric there. So when somebody's leaving, like, you're like, oh, I'm so sad you're leaving. Can I have your microwave and your fans, and can I have your lights? Can I have your, like, you start poaching their things, because you don't want to buy all this stuff that you're just going to leave behind. So you just kind of fill up your place with everybody's leftovers. You kind of say, I'm really sad you're leaving, but can I come tour your house and see what you got?
Yeah, it's like garage sales. It's like, okay, they're having a garage sale. Let's go check it out.
It's
electronics
like
are the first to go.
Yeah, it's like the only electronics that usually are fine are things that automatically convert, like laptops and phones. And even then, like, because of the way that phones work, like, you usually have to get phones there anyway, even if you're visiting sometimes. So I was in the UK for 5 months, and I just got like a really cheap phone to use while I was there, rather than, but
mobiles there are super cheap. Like, their
super
plans
cheap.
They're not like here. They're cheap. Their phones are cheap.
Yeah, things are getting a little better now, though. There's a lot of like products now that they have their little power supplies can do both, like, 120 or 220, one of the two. So it automatically does it. So it's weird, because like I travel to Europe, and I can just plug my laptop right in, and the power supply will handle whatever power's coming in. So
laptops are all automatic converters.
Yeah.
So was the weather similar in both locations, or was it just so different that you're just like, oh my goodness?
And like when I was overseas?
Yeah. In comparison to Canada.
Oh gosh, no.
Okay.
Way different, way different. But it was interesting because, like, people came from all over the world to be there. Like, I think the country where my kids, or the school my kids attended, there was probably 60 different nationalities represented at the international school, which was a phenomenal experience for them. Like, I had friends from Latvia, I had friends from Spain, I had some from like Houston. They were just from all over the world, and they were amazing because we're all there. You never knew how long someone's going to be there for, so you didn't wait to get to know each other. You were just like instant friends, because you just took advantage of the time you had.
Yeah.
So everybody's from everywhere, and you can kind of, so I got a phone call from my daughter because the teacher was concerned that she wasn't wearing a coat, and it was cold. It was cold outside, and please send her with a coat.
Oh my
And I'm
goodness.
like, no, it's like 10
This makes me
Celsius. Like, there's no way we're cold yet. So just
Right.
sit tight, teacher.
yeah.
We
That's
might not get there.
So being from Washington, I had moved to California and my kids had attended school there and the kids were like, nice puffy jackets. And I was like, what? And then the teachers were like, you're overdressing your kids. And I'm like, hey, look, we came from the north. This is all they have.
The difference in cold was it's a wet cold because the air that came off of the North Sea was a wet cold. So when you got cold, it would chilled, like really chilled. You had to lay in a tub.
It goes through everything.
Yes. And you're cold all day. So that's why we wear a lot of scarves just to protect that cold from getting in, because you literally, like, there's lots of homes that had Lasana things, is that what they're called? Anyway, they had these little things that
they invented saunas.
Like those in-house kind of things, a little closet you kind of sit in and get warm. Because most bathrooms didn't have bathtubs, so
interesting.
The weather is different there. It doesn't get hot. Maybe for 2 or 3 weeks in the summer, it'll get unbearable hot, and you don't ever sleep on the top floor of your house because it's most are row houses, and they're 4 level like above, with about maybe 250 meters squared on each floor. So they're very chopped up, but really cool to live in. So everybody just kind of moves down and you don't sleep on the top floor when it's really hot, or you just spend the day at IKEA, which is the only place that I could go to that was air conditioned.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But it snowed maybe once or twice, a couple times, like in the winters, and just a dust of snow. It did get icy, like you couldn't bicycle because, well, the Dutch do. Because they're diehards.
Yeah, they're a little crazy.
They are.
They bike
they'll
and
have like a
everything.
winter bike with some spikes on it and stuff, and they'll still biff it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to The Hague in the summer and I froze. I had to wear a sweater. It was July, and then I went across the water to Edinburgh, and then again I had to wear a sweater. It was like, what is happening? It's summer, but I keep forgetting that it's so far up north that it's just so cold.
Yeah. No, it probably a year, and then you adapt, and then you start complaining about it being cold when it's not really cold.
Yeah.
Come home to visit, and I'd be a wuss.
So you got married at 21. How many kids did you have, or do you have?
I have 4 daughters.
4 daughters.
Daughters, all girls. I know. I know. We didn't know their genders. The first was a girl, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a girl. And the second one's a girl. And the third one, I was like, oh, it's just different pregnancy. Everything was different. I was like, this one for sure is a boy. And then it was a rough delivery, and then we got another girl. And I was like, oh, great. So by this point, we had, like, I kind of given up on trying to buy blue sleepers. I just figured that if it's a boy, he's just gonna have blue girl stuff for a while. But the fourth one was a girl again. So you kind of run out of girl names by the end of it. Like, I have a list of boy names that's going to be my sons, because I always wanted to have boys, but I ended up with a bunch of girls, which is really fun because my house right now is, it's a riot.
My sister has 5 girls, and it was kind of the same thing. Like, by the time they got down the line, they're like, what are we going to name this one? Like, they named my niece Mandy.
First names and middle names, and you don't know.
Right? So my one of my nieces, Mandy, she's the middle one. Like, they didn't know what they were going to name her, because the first 2, they were like, we had really specific names picked out. And then they heard like Barry Manilow's song Mandy at the hospital, and they're like, that's what we're going to name her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
My second daughter's initials spell mom. So, and I was too high on drugs to notice that that's what her initials spelled out.
That's
so
hilarious.
I'm so sorry, Mads. Like, she's just going to have to deal with that.
Well, you can always do like name the cities that you ever lived in, and you can say like Denver, Orlando, pick different cities.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No.
So many.
So my kids actually, I had no idea. I actually misspelled McKenna's name on her birth certificate.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you have to get it changed legally after?
No. So what happened was they had all these forms for me to fill out. And the very last form, because I'd been used to spelling Brennan's name with 2 N's. And the very last form that they gave me was her birth certificate. And it was supposed to be Makena. And I added the extra in, unfortunately. And so they're like, sorry, that's gonna be her name. You can't go back. It's only one form, one and done. So
Oh no.
my kids both have 2 N's in their name and they both have the middle initial R, and it was not planned that way.
That's funny. Well, they did it to my oldest son. So I have 2 sons. My oldest is named after me. So because my wife at the time wanted to have like the firstborn be named after me. So she fills all the paperwork out, like my name and her name. And then the paperwork lady at the hospital, all she has to do is duplicate my name and put like, the second after it or whatever. And she misspelled his middle name, Michael. Just have to duplicate my name, but she transposed the A and the E.
Oh no.
Good old American school system, right? She's like, Michael is EAL. And I'm like, no, it's AEL.
Oh, no.
So luckily in California, you can change it, but he has to have an amended document to his birth certificate. So now he has a birth certificate with his misspelling Michael and then amendment on the back of it showing it's been changed, it's been corrected. And I'm like, why? It's not even our fault. Like it was the lady in the office that filled it out. Like, so it's frustrating.
Yeah, that is frustrating.
So
go ahead.
I was gonna say, what do you do for work, Heather?
Well, a lot-ish. I'm a student nurse right now.
Okay.
So I'm picking up casual shifts where I can because I'm back in school again right now.
Okay. So what year are you on?
My last.
Okay.
Woo-hoo!
So it's funny.
Yeah.
So we took the same courses and then we split right when you get into clinicals. So your nursing, so your nursing program, we take the same courses in college and then we split. Well, at least that's the way it was when I took my classes in my early 20s.
No, I'm in classes with pre-med and pre-farm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's no what course did you take?
Dental.
Like a dental hygienist?
EFD.
I don't know what that is.
One and the same. It's like expanded duties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like the PA of a dentist. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to explain. I do all the fun stuff. Let's put it that way. But
okay, that works.
Yeah. Yeah. So we took the same courses.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's probably the same. It's similar because you both got a nursing actual like degree, like a bachelor's, right?
Like all of the pre-health stuff
Yes.
that you have to do for any like any health profession that you go
exams,
into.
Identify this feature on a bone and what's the purpose of the bone? What are the attachment points of all the muscles on this bone? And you have 1 minute to do it before you switch stations. That was intense.
Yeah, we didn't do that. That must be a Canadian thing, but
it was really grueling. That was hard, but we did it.
Yeah. So when do you
finish your program? 4 years?
Yes, but it took me a year to get into it. So I'm actually on my 4th of 5 years post-secondary.
Oof.
It took me a year to get into it because the GPA to get into the nursing program was a 3.88 or higher to be competitive. And I had a 3.6. So I needed 6 A's to offset my B's and to get me higher to get up into the 3.88. And I couldn't have an A minus. It had to be an A. So it had to be 86% or higher, or else I would have had to withdraw from the class because it would have brought my GPA down. So I did a lot of the nursing electives. They were allowable outside of the program as grade boosters, as those A's to get in. So there's a lot of pressure on me to get those marks to get into the program. It was pretty intense, but I got in as a huge celebration.
That's amazing, because that's a lot of pressure to
It is.
have to change your GPA. Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to drop it and start over again.
Oh, yeah.
You should have switched to dental. Yeah, you should have switched to dental. We were only a 3.5. Just
Really, that's
You know
really
what,
cool,
Carrie?
though.
I did dental one summer as a teenager. I don't even know why they let me do it. It was just like, I just had to sit there and hold suction. And I was must have been like 16 and I wasn't paying attention. I was kind of sitting on the chair as you do. And I wasn't paying attention to it. Next thing I realized I was suctioning the dentist's hair. Like he had like the cup and it was in the suction. I was like, ugh. So then, I had to go and do all the, cleaning and get everything back to sterile field.
Hilarious.
That's
funny.
So I always wait, like I have my PPE on and I always wait for the dentist to finish and then I go in and like finish what he's doing and then I finish his job.
Nice.
So I do like all the fillings and final impressions for crown preps, all that kind of stuff. So I don't get to deal with that. I usually just sit back there and just crack jokes.
Sounds like what I did as a paralegal. You do all the work.
Yeah.
Get all the papers ready, do all the research, look at all the case law, get everything ready, and you hand it over to the lawyer and they get to like sign away and then they hand it back to you and you do it all and you contact the client and you file at the courthouse and you take all the next steps.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I went home without the stress and the lawyer had the stress.
Yeah. It's pretty much.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I did want to be a lawyer, I recognize that there's you take that home.
Yeah. I don't think I could do that. I don't know.
I do. I love it.
So we do have a question, Heather, in the chat for you about whether you would like consider continuing your education after you're done with nursing. Like, would you want to be?
I do have plans for myself. If I'm still single and my kids are grown, like I've got, like when my youngest is gone, then yeah, I'm going back to school. I'll either go and get master's in nursing in acute care or towards like nurse practitioners are not something that's very common in Canada yet. Larger cities would have them, but you'd get more bang for your buck by getting your master's.
Right.
Either that or I'll apply and go to law school. And then I can work with my law degree and my nursing degree and work for the governing body that legislates the nursing body, like it keeps them in, like it's called CARNA, but it's what protects nurses and it's what holds nurses accountable. Things that licensing and things like that, when you have to go to court because something happened and your name was on it, you signed off on something, and it's a pretty big deal, nursing, because you're accountable for everything I sign off on, and I can be called into court at any point for something.
Wow, that's really cool. That's also just a really amazing way to kind of like combine your interests and your talents and your experience. But anyway, I think that's amazing. It's cool.
I know. So I got goals. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll get to see Heather in a wig when she goes to court.
One of those curly white ones.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, in Canadian courts, they have to wear the old-fashioned wigs.
It's like it's one of the things about being, a part of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, under the crown.
Right? Like, there's also one reason that America left. No, I'm kidding. It's like we're done with wigs. I'm joking.
Yeah, exactly. It's true because they wore wigs until we got our independence, and then like George Washington, like he just put his hair in a ponytail. He's like, I'm not wearing wigs anymore.
That's funny. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's part of like the formal regalia, right? Of the legal system.
It's the weird. It's like it was like the elites, the lords, and the elites. They would, I guess that was the way they stood out. Like if they walked down the street and had a wig on.
Well,
that's the term. There were very
few.
The big wigs are coming to town. The big wigs are in the office. That's where that stems.
That's where the term big wigs. Yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly. And there were only so many professions that you could do as like a gentleman, right? Like if you were going to work and you were a higher class person, like there were only so many, and being a lawyer was one of them, right? Going into politics was another. And so there's definitely a way in which this was linked to like class and nobility. Anyway, it's always fascinating to me when that stuff still is around and used. And I'm like, oh, this is like interesting that this is part of how like the power structure and the education and all of that stuff is still shown in kind of the formal things that people wear. Anyway, it's cool.
So Heather was, so you're married, you got divorced 5 years ago, and that's when you decided to go back to school?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a do or die situation, right? Like you can sit there and you live on child support, spousal support, and you kind of financially get through. But at the end of the day, my kids are gone, and what am I? What do I do with my life? What do I have?
Mhm.
You know, you can work wherever, and I do have the legal background, but that's not where I felt like I wanted to go. It was either law school or nursing school, but I picked nursing because it has more variety of where you can do with it, and it's got huge portability. Whereas a law school was another year of 2 more years of education, and then you're really stuck. You're really grounded to a geographical area because you build your clientele there, and you don't move as easily. And I didn't know what my future was, and I'm a big proponent of options. I love options. So, when I was like 17, 18, 19, when I was trying to figure out what to do, I was applying to schools. I was thinking about admission. I got accepted at BYU. I was doing all these things just to keep all the doors open. So same kind of thing. Yeah, I went back to school. So separated on December 31st and let my kids finish out the school year where we were living. And then we moved that summer, and I had to find a place to live. Try to find a place to live with no history of rental, no income, no job, and you're going to be a student. Nobody wants to rent to
So
you.
hard. Yeah.
Really hard. And you start showing up and you're like, yeah, I got 4 kids. And they look at you like, there's no way I'm taking a chance on you. So it was really rough figuring out how on earth I was going to start over again when I didn't have what I needed to get my foot in the door even. So it was just, somebody just took a chance on me. I was against all the applications of the rental agreements. I didn't check many of the boxes, but she let me rent her place or the townhouse. We stayed there for a while until I was able to buy my own place. So she got me out of a hole. So I was very grateful for her.
So is
Well,
your
that kinda-
goal, sorry, is
No,
your
go
goal
ahead.
when you finish school just to be like a traveling nurse, or do you have a certain area in mind that you want to move to, or?
That's the problem. I have no idea. There's so many areas that interest me. I love cardiac. I love oncology. I would love to do neuro rehab. Right now I'm doing post recovery unit, which is super interesting because the patients come semi-conscious or unconscious. So that's kind of a specialty area too. I really don't know. I won't do travel nursing until my kids, there's a lot of money to be made in travel nursing. But I won't obviously do that until my kids are grown. I would love to take a couple years and just take a job in another country and just take a contract for a year or two. I've always told my kids, we're just going to pick a country, girls. We're just going to meet there for Christmas and that'll be that. So don't plan on coming home. I'm going to be gone.
That's awesome.
That sounds like fun. It sounds like you got it all planned out. Like it's pretty amazing because it's a scary thing to go through a divorce, a huge life change, especially when your whole mind focus is like on your whole life. Like I know when I was married, I always have I have a 5-year plan. I always have a 5-year plan. I have goals in that 5-year plan, and then I move to the next 5-year plan. But in my mind, I also had man, when I'm 80 years old, it's gonna be awesome having the grandkids over. They can help decorate the tree.
Yeah.
If grandpa's got a little extra money, maybe he takes the grandkids to Disney World and, spends the weekend with them or the week at Disney World. I just had all these dreams. Like it'd be grandma and grandpa. It was gonna be me and my wife. And then bam, I'm 45 and I'm getting a divorce because all this stuff comes out and the relationship's falling apart. And it's like, well, this sucks. And it really changes stuff. But I think I think doing something new like you're doing, Heather, really changes your focus. So for me, in my career, I had my current career, but in my career, I can move around. I can do different jobs. I can do different things within my overall career. And so one of the things that I did, I applied to Mexico. I applied for a spot in Mexico and got it. So I competed for it. And then I was going to go down there and live. And I'm like, wow, I got a divorce. I don't know what I'm going to do. There's our friends are split back home. Like half the friends don't want to be friends with me anymore. And So just all kinds of craziness, right? Now I'm going far away from all that crap to meet new people and to like go to a new experience. And that I think that really helped me. That really kind of got me out of a funk that I could have been in for a really long time. So
It
at
does.
least for me, that was
Scary
my
place,
experience.
but it's good to take those chances and those leaps and just say, okay, here it goes. My phrase that's always in my head is sometimes you just got to go to war with the army you have. Just go.
It's a good one.
Like, this is what we got and here we are.
So that's like the topic
Sure.
that we're talking about. With the topic tonight is transitioning after divorce, like learning to fly solo. And that's kind of why I brought up my story of like, I visioned myself, grandma and grandpa, Christmas cookies and a fireplace, and the kids come over on Christmas morning to open presents at grandma's house. Total like Harlequin romance, or what is it? No, it's a Harlequin movie channel with like the Christmas stories, like
Hallmark? Is that what you're
Hallmark.
thinking of?
That's
Yeah.
right. See,
Harlequin's a little
Harlequin
less
romance.
Wow.
Sorry.
Star Wars character.
Let me put that book away. No, no, I
Funny.
meant the you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So
Hallmark.
anyway,
Hallmark
that was pretty
movies.
funny. That was a good Freudian slip there.
That was
Wow.
good. Well done.
Corey, I expect that from me, not you.
Well, there are some pretty spicy chapters, but yeah, I like those Christmas stories that the Hallmark Channel. Like I just picture myself being like that kind of storybook grandpa kind of thing, and it sucked. It sucked when it all fell apart. But yeah, it's like what Heather said. You just gotta, just gotta charge forward. And
I didn't charge forward easily. Like divorce is rough. That really just crumbles you. You feel shattered. Like you're trying to pick up pieces and build yourself together, but the pieces don't fit anymore. And usually in a marriage, you have different roles. I was really good at these things. He was really good at these things. And you just kind of shared it all. And suddenly it's all on me. Some of it I was not very good at. So I had to figure out how to become good at it. And there was a lot of tears on that too. I'm like, this isn't fair. Why do I have to learn to do this? Why do I have to take it all? And why does he get to do everything that's all this freedom? And I've got the heavy and the hard. So I think probably the first 2 years were a lot of mourning and loss and rebuilding, and mourning future losses when you kind of figure things out, mourning the current, and mourning your, like what you're saying, Corey, your future plans. I'm not ever going to get to do those things. Like when my kids have grandchildren, it's not going to be me and my ex in the hospital room. Like my kids have birthdays, and there's this hole, there's this space, and you kind of have to be okay with it. But initially it's okay to not be okay with it, and just feel like as long as you like feel it to heal it, the next year's better, and the year after that is better.
Yeah.
Until you're finally able to kind of go, okay, that's all that shrapnel in your mind has settled out, and it's going to be okay again.
Yeah.
And you start to rebuild your own future and your own goals and your own plans.
So
Well, I think one of the things that's difficult too is that divorce is hard even when it's the good thing to do, right? Like even when you're better off, there still has to be that time of grieving what you've lost. And I know sometimes, like I met some people coming out of the divorce are like, oh, I'm so relieved. I'm so, it's so good, but they still have to have this moment of like, yeah, this could have been something different. Right.
Yeah.
And grieving the death of that relationship, and feeling it all to move on.
Well, I knew my ex for 23 years. Like we met at 14, we dated for 7 years, kind of off and on as you do in high school. So that's 23 years of like my best friend.
Yeah.
And to have that kind of go upside down, and to kind of feel like, okay, wow, that just really happened. And to be able to kind of just close that door on it and let it be the pluses and negatives of whatever it was. It's there, and it will always be there, but it's okay that it's there, and that I'm really okay where I am now. That it's you don't look back with longing or wondering or if or what or shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's done. You just move forward.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough that my mom actually gave me some pretty sound advice before I even discussed getting married to my ex. she's like, at least finish college and make sure that you have a steady income just in case he loses his job, or, you know, that you can help support the family. I never wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I never wanted to be home at all. I can't. And so I was fortunate enough to have that. And later my mom was like, you know, aren't you glad that you did this when, you know, everything fell apart? And for me, my divorce was so different. I had actually started grieving the end of the relationship 5 years before it had actually even ended. So I felt like I had that step in the right direction. But it just took me just to be like, enough is enough, you know? But
you had your education prior to divorce. You didn't go back to school after.
I had my education. So I had actually graduated in June and I got married that August.
Oh, so you had like this.
I had it before. Yeah. My mom was just like, you know, just whatever you do this for me, please. And I did. But then I went back and I did the other program, which was the expanded duties program, which was an additional 2 years. And that was hard because I was pregnant with my son, working and doing school. So, but I was able to finish that program up by the time I had him. So it worked out in my benefit.
Yeah, that advice that your mom gave you, like that's advice I give to a lot of women, I think, just because it's it's so critical to be able to, I mean, not only to like have something in case something goes wrong, but like Heather was said later, you know, like once your kids are gone, like they're gone.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you can't be like a stay-at-home parent. It doesn't, right? But I think we have to think about, okay, well, what does that mean like in our modern context versus like, you know, when people were like farming and like with their kids all the time and had something to do afterwards. And I was in school when I got my divorce. I was in graduate school. And so, and it's a lot, like working and going to school and having kids is really, it's really, really tough when you're on your own.
And my best friend, they were, I guess we were just in college at that time, but her mom was a stay-at-home mom. And their dad died very suddenly and she had nothing to go off of. And now all of a sudden, you know, she had 6 kids at home at the time and 2 were off in college. And she's like, what do I do? Where do I start? You know, so she had to start from scratch. And I saw her just struggle. And I was thinking, I don't want to be in that position because anything can happen, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually important. I think, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's actually one of the things that keeps a lot of women in poverty is being married and then being like left with their kids. I mean, even here in the United States, right? And not having an education, not having a skill set, right? That they can put into the workforce.
Yeah, that's so true. And I knew that when I was getting a divorce, like my story, I probably shared this before, but I felt, even though I was the one that was wronged and the one that was being crushed and I was the one that actually filed for divorce. I mean, I felt exactly what Monica said. I'm like, you know, I don't want to leave my ex in poverty. I don't want to leave her struggling. So, you know, for me, and it just seemed like Heavenly Father knew that too, because things just lined up like nobody's business. Like, if I was to, and I'm going to describe it to you and you're going to be like, there's no way that happened. It's like, here we are getting close to like the time frame. Like my son's going on his mission November 1st. He's going on his, my youngest son. So I have 2 sons. My youngest is going to be out of the house. At that time, we had been in the household, living in separate rooms for 13 months, separated, but the divorce is going to be final in November. And at work, they canvassed at work in October. No, maybe it was September. They canvassed at work and they said, we're doing a hiring program for only friends and family. So if you have a friend or a family member you want to recommend, you can send in their resume and recommend them, and then we'll put them in the hiring process. So I came home and I asked my wife at the time, I said, hey, would you like to work where I work? And she's like, what? They're hiring? I'm like, yeah, I can get you a job. and then she's worried about losing her benefits. I said, well, if you work there, you don't have to lose your benefits. And then you start, when you get half my retirement, you can just transfer it right into your retirement account there, continue building it. And so I made sure she got a really good, secure job that's not going to lay her off. She gets benefits. And that was just something for me. I was really feeling exactly what Monica said. And I felt for my wife at the time. She was really scared. Like, she's like, what am I going to do? She's like, I don't know where I'm going to get a job. I don't know what I'm going to do for health benefits. And it was a very scary time. But you're right, Monica. It's really scary, especially for women that stayed home with the kids because they thought their marriage was going to be forever. And they're like, yeah, don't worry, I'll stay home with the kids. I don't need an education. I don't need a career. And it's all part of the sacrifice for our whole family. And then the family busts up. It's like,
Yeah.
what do you do?
That's what happened. The team player, bigger goals. So I stayed home with the kids because I couldn't have gotten a job or education when you're moving that frequently every 2-3 years, or every 2 to 2.5 years. And every move was for his career, for us kind of thing. If I had a job and a career, there's no way he could have done what he could. He traveled frequently, and I was home based and maintained everything. I never took on anything that required two parents because he needed to go at a moment's notice and I didn't want to be back. So I needed to be able to do all the extracurriculars and all the school things by myself. So there wasn't the opportunity for me to go to school, although I asked. It was denied a few times, which was a sore spot. But so I'm out and I'm doing it, but it wasn't without like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, but anything worth it is not without it. I mean, but kind of go back to my story. So she was hired like the second week of October when she was moving out November 1st. It was like, and our divorce was going to be final in December. It was like talk about like Heavenly Father knowing what a bad situation the whole thing was, and the fact that I really wanted her to be on her good feet. And the other thing is too, we had a house in Utah and we had a house in California. And when we did the appraisals, you wouldn't believe it. After doing the appraisals, they had the exact same equity in both houses. It was like,
wow.
What?
Yeah.
Like there was how do you write that stuff? And it was like the house in Utah was almost paid off. So like the payment was like $400 a month. And then the house in California obviously was higher. So she was able to get the townhouse with the same equity with a $400 a month payment versus, something expensive in California. We didn't have to sell properties. We didn't have to both move into studio apartments. It was like Heavenly Father, like really took care of it. It was just incredible how that happened. But it didn't go without planning either. I think we have to constantly keep thinking 5 years, have those plans, have those what ifs, have a plan A, plan B, plan C. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like with Heather, like she's like already thinking that way, I think, right? Because you're like, I don't know where I'm going to wind up. I mean, there's already people asking in the chat, like, would you move? Would you live in another country? Would you move for somebody? Would you?
I can. That's why I went into nursing. I wanted portability. I didn't want to be stuck anywhere.
Yeah.
And my licensing exam, my board exam that I have to write at the end of my degree, I qualify to write anywhere in North America. And I can move, and my education transfers over quite easily. So that gives me options, which feels good. My kids don't like where we're living right now. They'll flat out say that, like, Mom, we don't like it here. I'm like, I know. We're all just kind of barely making it here. So they're good to go. Like, and they're used to moving. I've taught them many times. I teach them
traumatic for kids.
I teach them how to say hello.
That's really traumatic for kids. Like I grew up in the Army, like my dad was in the Army. I moved every 3 years. So for me, it was like, moving's not a big deal. But for my kids, like who grew up in California, grew up in the same city pretty much, like I bet that would have been tough on them to be moving around. I mean, when I joined my current career when I was 35, the kids were older. Yeah. I would say they were in elementary school and junior high. And so, moving around a little bit with my career was a little bit tough. But we pretty much just bounced between Utah and California. So it wasn't a huge shocker for him.
But it's hard, like with different kids and different personalities and all of like, I was, when I finally got to the point where I was going to get a job, like it was tough because Hunter was coming up on kind of being in like middle school and high school, and he doesn't do well with change. And he's lived in Chicago like ever since he was born. And we had lived in like the same place even for like almost like we lived in 2 apartments, right? His whole life in like the same neighborhood. And so I was kind of like, well, with academia, like you usually have to do like the postdoc track. And I was like, I don't want to be moving my kid every year when he's at this like critical part of his life of like making friends and figuring out who he is. And I was like, if I'd done that when he was younger, I think it would have been fine. But then it was kind of like, okay, I have to like make some different choices now. But luckily, like with a PhD, there are a lot of a lot of doors that open up for different, kinds of jobs. But yeah, you really have to think about all of that stuff. So
Yeah. Well, and I think, and then some other tips and tricks that kind of worked for me, even post divorce, but I practiced it during, my whole life pretty much. But you've got to kind of have that 5-year plan. Like, I know it sounds cliche, but you got to say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So like, think of how old you are right now and where do you see yourself in 5 years? And if that vision is married to somebody, is it living in the same city you're living in or not? Are you open to moving? Are you open to like different situations? So you have to kind of say, where do I see myself in 5 years? Like Heather did that and she's already thinking, well, I'm going to be a nurse in 5 years, right? So Monica's like, I'm going to be teaching, I'm going to be Professor Monica,
The
it's like,
time's
I don't
gonna
know.
pass. The time's gonna pass anyway.
the time's gonna pass
I'm
anyway,
going to be
yeah.
older anyway. What is that going to be? I'm at the
Yeah.
end of my 5 years, like rounding up on the end of my 5 years. I'm like, oh no, I don't know what my next 5 years looks like after this. It's like
Yeah.
really wide open, which is exciting. It's a cool place to be. There's to have so many options like this. My oldest graduates. My second will graduate this year with me. So I'll have half at home and half off in university.
Yeah.
So it's just a
But
different.
once you have those goals, then everything that you think about, like when you say, this is where I want to be in 5 years. So like right now I'm in the last 5 years of my career. I have 3 years left. And my last 5 years, my goal was to use my employer the best I can to get a bunch of extra training and certifications in cybersecurity. So when I am ready to retire in my 5-year block, I'm retired, I get my pension and I go work in the cybersecurity field. And that was my goal. And I've in the last 2 years, I've gotten a couple of certifications done and I continue to want to do that. So like, you have to have a goal. Like, so you have to say, this is what I'm going to do in 5 years. And then every decision you make, every choice you make in the 5-year block to get there is that you make those choices for that goal. So if your goal is to be a grandparent in 5 years, then, you got to start hooking up your kids with dates. I mean, it's like, you got to have you got to work that plan towards your goal,
Yeah.
We can work in cybersecurity together, Corey, when you're done.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I know nothing.
I've got my 20 years experience and a few certs under my belt, but like
There
I
you
said,
go.
I wanted to get those expensive courses paid for by my
by your work, right? Yeah. Well, that's something that like with my work, like they have really incredible benefits. And one of them is like, so in 5 years, like Hunter will be in college, right? And one of their benefits is that they actually have dependent scholarships. So like they'll pay for my son's college, which is like up to like $21,000 a year or something.
Oh,
so if he
that's
goes
awesome.
to school like in state or he goes to BYU or whatever, it's gonna be like free college, basically. Yeah, which is incredible. But that also shapes like 5-year like plans for this, where I'm like, oh, well, that's worth it to me to like not have to pay for my son's college, to like stay in this place that I love. And
oh yeah. And it's weird because as you get older, you have to start thinking different things too. Like my mom's 75. So it's like, I'm like, okay, so where's my mom going to be in 5 to 10 years? Like, am I going to be taking a trip out for a funeral, or am I going to be like, man, it's great, Mom, you just turned 100. I don't know. But those are thoughts you have to have in your mind. You have to have plan A, plan B, and plan C. And sometimes they're running concurrent and you're doing things in your life to fit all three because you just don't know which one's going to materialize. So at least that's how I run my life, or I try to do my life. I try to think about those things. A mission is in there. Definitely a senior mission is in my 10-year, 20-year plan. maybe a mission president. I don't know.
Especially now, you can like request a certain type of mission. You can ask for where you want to go. You can like, it's like, this is like.
That's right. I want to dig water wells
missions
in Africa.
Wait, during a senior mission, I want it to be a hard one.
Isn't Corey already?
Hard.
Yeah, isn't Corey already at the age to be on the senior mission? Just asking.
Oh,
for friends, Terry, is that the? Just kidding.
Woo,
But
where's the
Heather,
aloe vera?
I really love that like you've taken these like the interests that you're in and like working on your education and doing these things where like it does open where it is opening up these options to you, right? Because there are a lot of different things that you could do that would give you that flexibility, but it's really cool that you're combining it with the things
because
you
I
love.
have planned for myself, like if I stay single, these are my goals and things I want to do. But you're also kind of looking like, just options. If you end up being married or in a relationship, then those goals change and you start to build your life together. You start to combine your goals and figure out which ones are okay. No, this I was only going to do if I was just going, stay by myself. Or then you start to build your real goals again. So it's not like I've got goals for me forever by myself, because you're still open to the option of a relationship, and that's really can be amalgamated, and you can like join together rather than these two independent people who have these two very firm fixed goals and futures, and you'll never be able to mesh because you're so fixed in your personal goals that way.
And that's what I was talking about, the 3 different tracks. So you have plan A, which is like you never meet anybody.
Yeah.
That's track A. Track B is I meet somebody and then we sit down and figure out, do you move to Canada? Do you come down to whatever country that person's from? Whatever it is, you figure that out. And then plan C is like, well, maybe
Just
I
something
stop
else.
nursing, or I, totally change my track and go into legal or whatever it is. You got to have those 3 like what if scenarios, but you got to work it. But you also have to work at all 3.
I do keep your options open. I know
It's
I've got
super
contacts in
confusing.
Klarna right now.
Yeah.
So if I get that far, I've got contacts of somebody who's worked there that I can be able to get in somehow.
Yeah.
I have. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and it's important to like just keep an open mind. Like it's really hard to plan. Like you can't really plan the track that involves someone else, right?
No, you just have to be open to it.
You just have to be open to it and open to like a lot of the different possibilities that could come with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Corey was talking about the 5-year thing, and I take a different approach actually. So every year I reassess where I'm at and what I want to accomplish in that year. For me, it allows for change, it allows for evolving, it allows for growth. And in that following year, then I'm like, okay, what is something I want to accomplish this year? And sometimes it just seems very superficial, and that's okay because it's my goal. It's not about anybody else. And I always try to make it like a very personal goal for myself, and then a very outward goal. But I always come up with 2 goals that year that I want to work on. And by like month 5 or 6, I always add like a little bit more, because I find myself, I get so focused, hyper focused on the one goal that I just cross it off really quick. And then I go to the next one. And then I'm like, okay, well, what else can I do? So it's not really like, for me, I have a hard time looking 5 years in the future, just because I don't know what the future is going to look like. And that's okay with me. Like I would rather, things just fall into place, and it's not about my time. It's about Heavenly Father's time. So I would rather just know and that is a comfort to me, knowing that that's going to take place for myself. But like, I think it was last year, I had set the goal just to be like, I wanted to get back at my fitness level. And then I made it. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, now I want to push myself even further. And I want to do this. And then I did that. And it seems really superficial, but along with that was personal growth. I wanted to be able to effectively communicate with my kids. And I wanted to be able to effectively communicate with my coworkers and my employer, and also be able to voice my needs without coming across demanding. Not like I do that, but I wanted to be able to effectively communicate my needs in a proper way. So those were just my goals for this last year.
Well, it's just awesome, Terry. It's just an awareness, a self-awareness. Where am I now? Where do I want to be? And what am I doing to get there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
I'm
and
much
one-
more of a
that's-
year, but I'm much more of a year by year person too.
Yeah,
Right?
and
So-
you do what works for you. Like for me, my 5-year plan, like I'm constantly assessing throughout the year and then reassessing, and sometimes my course, I'm still heading in that direction. It just gets a little wacky sometimes and maybe a little bit stalled in some areas. But like in my career, like for example, my career, one of my 5-year plans. So by the time I made it to Mexico, it was in my second 5-year plan. Like my goal was to work in overseas for the agency I work for. And that's a very competitive, very hard thing to do where I work, to go work overseas. That you have to be very trustworthy. You're not going to go there and screw up and embarrass the agency and embarrass the name. And so it's pretty competitive. But so when I made a goal, I said in 5 years, I'm going to be somewhere in the world. I'm going to go somewhere and work in the world. And that was my goal. And so everything that I did. So if somebody said, hey, do you want to go to the Philippines for 3 months? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? Because I need the experience. So when I put my application in, I've got my experience overseas. So everything that came along during that 5-year period, I'm like, how does that work in my 5-year plan? Yes, that works perfect. And I would jump on it. And if sometimes somebody would say, hey, do you want to come and try this thing? I'm like, yeah, that's not going to fit in my plan because that's going to distract me and take me way off course. And then I won't have those opportunities to go overseas, which will lead me to what ultimately happened, going to Mexico. So yeah, having those 5-year, like long-term goals, I'm always checking every year, every couple of months to make sure that I'm on course for 5 years, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I
I
just
think it's
want
good.
to
I think, oh, go ahead, Heather.
Go ahead, Monica. I was going to change it. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think a lot of times like people, and I don't know, Terry, you could probably speak to this too, but for people who tend to do a lot of like year by year or month by month or, checking in, I think there always is this idea of like the general kind of where you want to get to, where you want to be, what
Yeah.
kind of life you want to have, and but so that always plays into, I mean, there have been a lot of things that have come up for me where I sit there and I say, okay, like, one, is this something that's going to like help me down the road? But then also there's also a part of it that's like, is this something that I'm going to be able to do again? Or is this like my one shot? So like when it came up to do like the dig in Iraq, I was like, well, this could help with my academic stuff, but I'm not going to be an archaeologist. So like, I don't have to do it. But it was one of those things where I was like, this is like a once in a lifetime thing. Right. And so I'm going to do it. Like,
Yeah.
even if it kind of doesn't necessarily fit. So there's just all sorts of moving parts with it. But yeah. Go ahead, Heather. You wanted to change the subject.
To go back to the topic about transitions. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience that's looking at transitions or scared to make the transition, but I wanted to share something that I read years and years ago that was kind of a game changer for me, because you go from like stay-at-home mom where you got to be there for everything in your children's lives. You kind of got everything okay. You know what's happening at school. You know what's happening in assignments. You're involved in their extracurriculars. Like you understand it all. I love being a wife. I love being a mother. It was awesome. I got to fulfill those roles to like the best of what I could do. I did whatever I could do in a calling in the church. It was an awesome time. And then to be able to really suck at all those things because you're in school. So a lot of time is gone there, a lot of focus is there, a lot of energy there, and you've lost the emotional bandwidth and you've lost the time. So you spend a lot of time kind of going, I fail. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't be there for my kids' transitions. I'm not baking and cooking their favorite things anymore. I sent my daughter off to school for dress up day on the wrong day, like full unicorn. And it was absolute wrong day. So you really start to doubt yourself and you're like, I can't do this and I'm failing. And you have to, and then you're in school and maybe you got a mark on a test and it wasn't what you needed. So you have to do better on the next one. So you feel like you're failing in both because you can't give your all in everything. Does that make sense? And it's really, really cuts you to the core because you're stuck here. You have to do it. You have to find a way through it. So what helped me after I bumbled around for a while is this article that talked about all the balls are in their air and you're trying so hard to keep them up and you're scared something's going to drop. And so you're just overextending yourself, trying to trying to keep everything afloat and keep your own sanity, which you kind of put yourself last. So you're not functioning on all cylinders, and yet you're still trying to keep everything up. But this article talked about the differentiation between plastic balls and glass balls, and which ones in your life are plastic and which ones are glass. And they're not just school is glass and kids are glass. It was the tiny things. My midterm was glass. My kid's relationship with a friend that was on the fritz is a glass. The laundry was plastic, like mowing the lawn was plastic. So there's all these things where you start to figure out, okay, yeah, that one can drop and it will bounce and it will roll away and it'll eventually roll back again. It won't be the end of the world. So you start to, and some things at some things at school, maybe my lecture prep that week was plastic and maybe another week it was glass. So you're constantly evaluating all these pieces that you're holding, if they're plastic or if there's glass. And I've learned to let the plastic ones go. They're okay. They will be fine. They'll drop, they'll roll, they'll come back, you pick it up and you bounce it back and do it again. And you can put your focus and your energy and feel good about the glass ones.
Can I just say something about the plastic balls?
Yeah.
They make great eyes and trees. Just saying. Obviously, you're not familiar with my shenanigans.
She likes to put googly eyes on everything. That's that's a really great analogy though, I think, of like figuring out like what can fall and what cannot. It also, like, listening to you talk about that, I think it also it just makes me think of learning. Part of transitioning too, I think, is learning that like it's okay to not be 100%, and that most people aren't actually, right? That it's okay to let things go. It's okay to not be that, like, it's not a competition, right? It's not that. It's okay to be that parent. And I think sometimes too, for me, it's been learning like, well, what about my personality? Like, does this make more difficult for me? So thinking about you talking about your daughter, sending your daughter to school as a unicorn, like here in high school, I'm like, people will be like, oh, did you go to that Zoom meeting the other day? And I'm like, what Zoom meeting? It's something that I realize is a normal weakness of mine, to not necessarily like stay on top of my email or whatever, but it's something I've noticed much more acutely, right, as a single parent, and just kind of being like, okay, it's like, he's going to be okay. This is going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
It's going to be all right.
It's going to be all right.
Yeah.
The other thing, like sometimes even the glass ones, like maybe all the plastic dropped and I'm still holding the glass and I feel like I can't even hold the glass. And I know that I've given my all, and that's when I can take it to my Savior and Heavenly Father in prayer and just say, there's this glass ball and it's coming down and I can't catch it.
Yeah.
And I know that because I've given my all, my effort, that I can ask for the powers of heaven to catch that glass one for me. And I can trust more and more in that as the years go by, that I don't think that any of the glass ones are being held by me solely. They're not. Heavenly Father's with me, holding them and taking care of them. So I don't worry about them as much.
And I'm going to say too, as well, like on this whole topic of transitioning, I think sometimes the biggest thing in transitioning, like you said, with the plastic balls and the glass balls, is knowing what you can step away from and what can wait. And you don't have to take care of the dishes right now. You don't have to do laundry right now. I mean, it's going to be useful in the future, but it's just learning to just separate your day and not be so overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes time, because if you're used to keeping everything up and you've got a certain standard, to be able to say, that's not my standard anymore. I'm still a wonderful mother and I'm still giving the absolute best that I can. It's just a different kind of best.
Yeah.
And the flip side is that my kids see me study. They see me work hard. They see me put in effort. My oldest daughter, she's in her second year university. She has amazing study habits. She's on top of all her lectures. She's doing things ahead of time because she's seen me do it.
Yeah.
Well, and they've also seen you like be vulnerable, and they've seen you be adaptable, and that's huge for kids, right? To see what that looks like as we and this is something like, even when people are not getting divorced, it's just part of being dynamic as humans, right? That things change and we have to learn how to like adapt to a new situation. And so that's really great. I think.
I also know
Kids.
too, for myself, I actually would never trade my experience for the world, because it actually taught my kids to team up together and get things done. When I was working those 90-hour weeks and, putting in tons of overtime, it literally taught them how to work together. And they are so close today because of that team mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure.
As a parent, I like that.
Yeah, I think something else too is that we don't always recognize, like, yeah, I think you're right that like Heavenly Father's there holding balls and we don't really recognize it. But I think sometimes we don't recognize the way in which other people are also there to help hold the balls, right? Like, it's really important. Yeah, to ask them to help.
I can't make this.
Yeah, exactly. And I know for like, once kids reach a certain age, like it's really good for them to like confide in other adults that they trust and be able to talk to different people and get different views, and like that also could, is that's part of what it takes to raise kids, and it's part of different people kind of managing some of those things and having an effect on them.
Yeah, like teaching my children to build their own support network outside of me.
Yeah, exactly.
So that I'm not their everything, that they know how to confide in and what to trust and how to build those relationships for their own lives, that their lives aren't going to just be me.
And it also gives them a sense of independence, because, they're actually required to stand on their own feet and make decisions and, and have the ability to make decisions. So I think it's really important.
There's a comment in the chat that I like about this, but just talking about like even marriage being a partnership, which is like when you're transitioning to being single, like it's like you're losing that aspect, and depending, it might not have worked very well in your marriage, right? But the idea of being kind of like a partnership of working with someone to do some of this stuff, and uniting efforts, right, with someone else, kind of regardless of what's going on, to take care of it. Yeah, it's a good.
My daughters and I are a team. I can say, hey guys, the next few weeks are going to be really bad. And what are we going to do to get through them? And they kind of buoy up, they rise to occasion because they know it's a time frame. You can do anything for any certain amount of time. And they'll say, okay, well, I can get the groceries, or I can do this pickup for this daughter here. And then we kind of schedule it in. It's a team effort. It's a team sacrifice because we have goals together. I know that they know that I will support them in theirs and they support me in mine.
Yeah, I really love that. What other kinds of specific things, because I really like this analogy of like the balls, but what other kinds of specific things do you feel like really struck you that you either struggled with or that you found ways to kind of push through that were unique, like different things that you used to help yourself in your transition? Like, what types of tools did you use? How did it work for you, right, on a kind of a practical level?
Well, a lot of failure and get back up again. That's not easy. You mess up and you, okay, how did that go? Like, I make mistakes, but I try really hard not to make the same one twice. So you figure out, why did this fail? Why did this go so wrong? It's just sometimes, I think what helped is the realization that glass ball stays, plastic balls can fall. I do a weekly planning meeting with my girls. Every Sunday night we sit and we plan the entire week. Who's responsible for what meals? Who needs to be somewhere? What does my schedule look like? What does their schedule look like? We plan out the whole week. Who's in charge of what? And the responsibility is shared. I'm not the dictator. I'm in the plan too. So wherever I can pitch in, I'm in. Wherever they can pitch in, they can. I also try my best to make sure that they're still kids, that if I can do something as the mom, that I will do it. So if I'm asking them for their help, it's because I need it, not because I'm trying to get out of it. So they know that if I'm asking them, then it's genuine. I'm not trying to just pass the buck.
So that's what I did with my kids too. We're on a rotation schedule. None of us like cleaning the bathroom. None of us like mowing the lawn, but we all rotate. And it's kind of funny because I have a calendar that's the team calendar. And so one day it will be, my son will mow the yard one week, and then my daughter has to mow the yard the next week. And if she doesn't do it, then I'm like, well, you just kind of backed everything up. You can be part of the team, or you're going to be part of the audience. So it is very helpful. I found for myself, being a single mom, it was very helpful to have that structure. And like you, I mean, I was right in the middle of that. I I mow the yard just as much as my kids. So
I think it's also, there's lots of people willing to help, but they don't know what to help with. So if I can specifically identify this piece, I need help with this piece. And people say, oh, sure, no problem, I can do this piece. So you need to know where your gaps are and be able to verbalize them and say to somebody, I need help here. Yeah. That's really, it's humbling because I'm usually one that gives the help. I had a lot of years in the church where I served and loved it. And now it's a different phase of life where I have to accept it or else I couldn't get by.
Yeah.
But there's people out there who really, really want to serve and want to be a part. So I can give you very specific things that I need for help with. You know, I can't be in 2 places at once and I need this at 5:30 and I can't be there. Can you do this? And they do. It's just awesome. So I would say something else, anybody doing transitions or trying to do hard things, is know where your faults are, know where your gaps are, where you can't be there. And I think go easy on yourself. You're doing something really, really hard.
Yeah.
So cut yourself some slack.
Give yourself some grace.
Yeah. So before we go to the audience questions, Heather, I just have one question. So are you dating anybody? We didn't get to ask this. Are you dating anybody? Or are you seeing anybody? Or what kind of guy in your head that you're...
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I could hear you. Yeah, you froze a little bit though. Is that just for me or did?
So what is your ideal in your head? No judgment. What does your ideal guy look like to you?
Oh, did she freeze or is that just me? I think I kind of.
I think she's having internet.
There we go. There we go. Okay, she's back.
Got to unmute her now. There you go.
Sorry, I think that's probably a good time to dip out and have the internet cut out. I think there was a pretty personal question coming my way.
Right?
It
was kind of. So we didn't get to ask you this before your intro.
Right?
What was
that?
yeah?
So we didn't get questions.
So we didn't get to ask this before, and now my internet connection's unstable.
I
think it's the Zoom. It's the Zoom server. It's playing on Zoom.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a sign.
So it's curious. We didn't get to ask this before. So before we go to the audience questions, are you dating? Are you seeing anybody? And what is your ideal, to you, your ideal man look like for you?
I'm single.
Okay.
I have been on dates, but not necessarily dated lots. I think that my geographic location is a deterrent. I think me being in school has been a deterrent. And I have 4 daughters, and for some reason that scares men away. They're like, oh, I'm out. Which is fine. Thanks for showing me your true colors up front. I'm good. Right? Like, you don't want what this is, then just go away, because I'm not hiding and not apologizing for any of it. I'm happy and proud of everything that my life is. My ideal guy, I think every female's got the same kind of list, don't we?
I don't think so.
Do you like a tall guy? Do you like
I don't.
Women have preferences. They say it all the time on the Facebook sites. They're like, oh, 6 foot, 6'2", they got their little preferences.
I don't want quantitative data. I don't actually care. It's more qualitative types of things that I would be looking for. I want someone who's hardworking and driven, somebody who can match me. Lazy, if they're lazy or the hint of lazy, I'm just like, I'm out. I have very little tolerance for lazy. I understand, a personal day or a down day or these kind of times, but a continuous lazy, I know. There has to be physical attraction. You have to be attracted to them. And that comes in lots of different ways. Like, I find lots of men attractive. I want emotional intelligence, like somebody that's a great communicator, somebody that can identify feelings and be able to articulate them, somebody who can recognize that in other people, somebody who's kind and kind heart to other people. I think in a relationship, I want my partner to have like a Venn diagram where you overlap in the middle of your relationship. And then they've got their things out here that they do, and I've got my things out here that they do, that keeps you whole as a person. but you have an overlap where your relationship is. And maybe sometimes you jump over there and enjoy that time, you jump over here and enjoy that time, but to allow that space for the other person and to allow me to be me is, I think, would be important in a relationship. I don't want the Venn diagram to be like over top of each other. It just becomes suffocating at that point.
Yeah.
So
for
maintaining
sure.
independence, that's important.
Yeah.
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 And, you know, as far as church, I want someone who has a testimony. The quantitative, the numbers, are you attending and are you this, and do you go to a soccer meeting and do you do all your stuff? That's very personal and very different between different people, because people can go through emotions and get all the boxes, but their testimony isn't strong. I would rather date someone who's been through really rough stuff and came out on the other side. Like that's attractive to me.
I'm going to add something to that whole testimony thing. I think we are constantly building our testimony.
Yeah.
And
But if you're not building it, you're losing it. Like it's not.
It's a roller coaster ride.
It
Like
is.
your testimony is a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like I was getting a divorce. When I got to my divorce, it was like, oh, this sucks and da, da, da. But then I got a really strong testimony on the atonement, because I saw the atonement in a different way. And I've said this 100 times, you know, in past podcasts, but like, you realize that the Lord suffered for the victims. He suffered for the sufferers, people who are actually just suffering for suffering's sake. He suffered, and he can also relieve you of that. It's not just all about sin. And so your testimony is like, yeah, it got a little bit strained during my divorce, and then it swung back, and you're like, oh my gosh, the atonement's so incredible. Like, so it's just, yeah, you're right. It's a constant ride. So
Yeah, I would look for those kinds of things. I don't know. Haven't found it yet, so I'm just keep going forward. I got a plan, right?
Yeah.
My kids want
Well,
me to. They're always, my kids are trying to set me up. Like I'll get my daughter be in the grocery store and just give me the elbow like really bad, and I'm like, what? She goes, that guy, he's looking at you. I'm like, I missed it, because you miss them all the time.
That's funny. My son used to try to set me up too all the time. He gave up eventually, but
I think when I'm out and about in town, I'm too focused on the task that I have at hand that I miss men, because I'm not actually looking. I'm out to get my goal and get back home and get everything else I need to do. So
you
I miss
have
it.
laser focus. It's not
I
a
miss
bad
it
thing.
badly.
No,
There
it's
was
not a bad
I was
thing.
buying blankets for my living room, like really nice, like I really liked them. And there was a guy in the checker in the line, and he said something like, well, those are really nice blankets. I'm like, yep, like I'm buying them. So I agree with you. And then he said, well, if I went and got the same blankets, then we would have something in common. And I'm like, okay. And I said, well, it's too bad I just bought the last two. And then I just kept going. Like I missed it. I just didn't respond in a way that would have promoted an interaction. I just ended it and left the store.
So I have a question along the lines of what Terry was saying. So you're not, it doesn't matter how tall a guy is. So then how tall are you? There's a better question.
I'm the shortest in my family, and my kids and I.
The shortest.
Yeah.
I love that that's the
Okay,
answer. It's just like, I'm the
wait.
shortest.
Let's play a little. Let's see if we can guess who is the shortest on the podcast. So,
Oh my gosh, Terry.
who?
I'm the
Just
shortest
say.
in my family, but my family's very tall. So I am actually very
I'm the
average.
tallest in my
A little bit
family.
above average.
All right, Terry.
I'm the tallest in mine.
She's
You're the
so
tallest
short,
in my
Heather.
family.
She's so
Just
short.
saying.
All right. So
Stop.
what is it, Heather? What is
my
it?
youngest, she's 12, and she's 5'8".
5'8". Okay.
And I'm
So you're
5'5".
shorter than 5'8".
I'm shorter, and my oldest is 5'7", and
Okay.
the middle two are 5'5", 5'6", in there. Then I'm 5'2", and I'm definitely still in charge.
Oh, see, look,
All
Terry, you have a little twin.
Yep.
Like a little like fiery. Yes.
And I'm the tallest in my family. So
Oh, I'm not. I'm okay with it. I wear heels. I like my height. I really don't care.
I don't care either. Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter. Like I just was asking because sometimes women who were tall, like 5'10", get close to that 6 foot, they really struggle like with the whole, like, I don't want to be taller than a guy, like than the guy I'm dating. And so, and there really is, I would say, because you could just go to a store and try to buy a pair of jeans, like for men. Majority of men are right between 5'6" and 5'10", like right in there, and like the bell curve. And a lot of them, I know a lot of them are like 5'8", 5'9", right in
Yeah,
there.
average
So
is like 5'8", 5'9", yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
so if you for a woman who's 6 foot, it's rough on them because they're like, oh my gosh, a lot of men are shorter than me. So that's why we asked the question. So
So
My
what's
ex
really
was 6
awesome.
foot, so that's where it came from.
So what's really awesome for being a woman who's 5'2" is that you can go to the jeans section and you can pick out the crop jeans, and they're gonna fit just like ankle jeans. Well, at least for me, I have like a pretty short inseam.
I can't buy a crop jean because they look stupid.
Yes, yes. You're like, okay, hello, rolled up jeans.
Like my ex was 6 foot, and I always thought, okay, it might be nicer to have somebody who wasn't 6 foot, because then like you're closer aligned for kissing. Like, do you
that's
know?
true. Yeah, you're not on your tippy toes stretching your
Yeah.
neck, right?
Like I need a step stool all the time. I think it would
Well, or
just
even like hugs can be weird. Like I always feel weird when I'm like hugging someone's belly as
Or
opposed.
armpit?
Yeah, well, not even their arm. Like, yeah, I've had to like my big brothers are all really tall. So like one of my brothers is 6'4". So I'm like almost a foot taller than him. And like it was just hugging him was always like I wasn't even in his armpit. I was like below that. I was just like around his stomach, I'd be like, hey, like look at him. I'm like, hey, that's it. I don't like
Yeah, I always thought that'd be weird that you're always like around their butt area. That would just kind of disconcerting.
Corey,
Like, please don't walk in front of me. Please don't walk in front of me.
oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's go to audience questions.
We had to end on a butt joke.
Yeah.
Or we could end on a serious note.
There you go. Let's be
No.
serious.
Be like, so, but this is going back a little bit, but it was something that I really like that you said, Heather, about building your kids' own support network and stuff. Because I think one of the things that's really difficult about the transition, like when you have kids in particular, is that kids of single parents tend to gravitate towards that parent a little bit more in a relationship that's more like a partner or a spouse, right? In the sense of like wanting to take care of their parent, wanting to like recognizing that there's nobody there. And I think sometimes as parents, part of the transition too is like making sure that you maintain that childhood for your kids, making sure, like you talked about how like my kids know like they're still kids and like I'm not giving them responsibilities because I'm like don't want to do it, right? It's because it's something that they need to do to grow, or they need to learn, or it's teaching them responsibility. And I think that can be really hard for single parents. So I just want to point out that I really loved what you said about that. And I think it's really, really great. So
I try.
yeah,
That's the best we can do as parents. Just try and just keep
yeah.
trying.
Yeah, for sure. There you
Well, I
go.
guess
Serious
question
transition.
time.
Serious note, we're done. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, so we're going to be moving to questions for everybody. If you guys have questions in the audience, we'd like you to come on, like turn your camera on, your mic on, and come on and ask questions. You can ask questions of Heather. You can ask questions of any of us. Anything that we discussed during the last hour and a half that you want clarification on. If you just want to come on and make a comment of what you're doing to transition to learning to fly solo and how you're transitioning from a divorce, come on and let's hear your story, or let's ask your question, and we'll be happy to answer it for you. So does everybody know how to raise their hand? I think, what was it? What was I can't remember if it was Alt something.
Alt Y, right?
Yes, that's what it is. Alt Y.
Ta-da! There it is.
Yeah, Alt Y. So if you can Alt
Not
Y
everybody
us.
at once.
Everybody's like, I'm not my hand up. Although we do have a question in the chat. We can start because I think this person's asked this twice. I don't know what your name is. I don't know if
Yeah,
you could
who's
like
I am?
change your name to be what your name is, but I had asked a couple of times, like if you had an ideal place to move to, or like if you could, move anywhere, where would be like your ideal place?
I've lived a lot of different places. I don't think I have an ideal place. You learn to love where you are. I would avoid somewhere that's really hot. I don't want to do hot.
Like Orlando, Florida.
hotter. Like
Or like Miami, Florida.
hot humidity. I don't.
Oh, Houston, Texas.
Right.
I served my mission there,
But
so
their
I can
housing
gripe
is so
about
cheap
it.
there. I've heard their housing is cheap, so maybe that might
Yeah, because
offset.
who wants to? Because yeah, but the air conditioning bill is outrageous.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. I don't think I have an ideal place. I've lived lots of places and loved them for many different reasons, each of them.
Yeah, I love that. I feel that way too. It's
I
always
love
like,
green. I love mountains.
Yeah,
Home is
there are
where
always
the
good things, right? About everywhere we could
Yeah,
live.
there
Like,
are.
there's always
There's
always
always
good
something.
things. Cool.
so somebody's posting Utah.
All right. But is anybody going to raise their hand?
I guess nobody. I guess they're all watching TV and like kind of chatting in the.
It's
Like, are you
think
guys
on
gonna come on and
Monday.
ask questions?
I
Like,
think on
hello,
Mac,
people.
It's like the
people.
Mac Y, right? Is how you raise your hand. So
Yeah, the option Y if you're
Or
on a
option
Mac.
Y,
So
yeah.
we got a bunch of Mac users tonight, but that's okay. We don't have to. There we go.
Hey,
We got one
okay.
question finally. Let's bring them on. Oh, look at that. Heather's like, great. I'm on the hot seat.
All right. So we asked you to unmute. You're going to have to unmute yourself. 509 pest control.
That's my area code. What the heck? I'm
Somebody's,
the pest, apparently.
Somebody's business.
That's right.
Hello.
Oh, what the
You're-
heck? Okay, there I
There you
am.
go.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry. I had to skedaddle out of the house. I guess my question is, since I actually know Heather a little bit, how about people with disabilities? And the question is, and this could be for everybody, how do you deal with people with disabilities? Because I am 100% disabled through the military. I physically can walk and physically can do those things, but are those big deterrents?
Like in a dating relationship, you mean?
Yeah, just in a relationship in general.
I think, don't we all have our weaknesses? Like
Yes.
I've got mine that I'm kind of like, well, nobody wants me because I X, Y, Z, and somebody else has got something else. So I don't think it's something that's always a deterrent. It's just, is there more compatibility than there is something more about something you'd be deterrent for? Because I'm sure that somebody with a disability isn't embarrassed by it. This is me, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody's not going to accept you for that, you don't want that person in your life. It's not
like
something
that.
you're going to apologize for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the person,
Yeah.
if you're with them, then they're going to love you for it, not because of it.
Yeah, I go to bed every night as a fighter pilot. So I put on my mask, since I was 30 years old, my brain didn't tell me to breathe anymore. So
So you're on a CPAP.
deterrent for people, right? Because it
That's
looks
really
funny.
CPAP?
Well, CPAPs are pretty sexy, I must say.
Well, it's a VPAP, so it's a little bit different, but the same machine.
A CPAP, or what is
Is
it?
it bigger? A
VPAP.
VPAP.
CPAP, so it's a bi.
Yeah, so it's a variable pressure. but-
Okay.
It's interesting. For
That's
sure.
okay. You know,
I
you can only-
wear a mouth guard at night some nights, so I don't clench my teeth when I'm stressed. Like we all got our stuff.
I do too. I've got a
Yeah.
mouth guard that I'm ashamed
Yeah.
of.
Oh, you're ashamed of?
I put a little denture cleaner in the jar and clean it all out.
So what you all are really saying is next time we all need to come with our mouth guards in, right? I
Yeah.
I
Yeah, and
actually
talk with our mouth guards in.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think that it's like, for me, I think it's one of those things that it's more about like where the person is like mentally and emotionally in relation to themselves, right? And what kinds of support they've like constructed around different issues that they might have going on. Like, are they working on keeping themselves emotionally and mentally healthy, right? And that doesn't mean that they have to be there, like in terms of their emotional, mental well-being, but are they working on that, right? Because I think sometimes with physical disabilities, it can be really hard when some of those people are looking for someone to also like be their therapist, be their like kind of have all of their needs met by like a
Their
potential
nurse.
partner. Yeah. And I don't think even for people who don't have physical disabilities like that, like that's still not something we can expect from our partner. Like we can't expect our partner to fulfill like all of our needs. So I think that's something that I definitely look for when someone has a disability is like, okay, that's
what is their own attitude towards their own disability counts for a lot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great question, though. That's a very good question. Thanks for bringing that up.
It's a good question, and it's a hard question, right? Because I definitely know that I've seen people who are like, nope, right? Like won't. And that's just them. So it's a really good question.
Well, thanks for that question. That was an awesome question, because that's like, oh wow, I never thought of it that way. I never thought of that. I never put that in my 5-year plan. You probably should add that to your mix and say, what if I met somebody that was totally awesome?
This is reach the God, there's more options.
Exactly. I met somebody who's totally awesome. They just have a slight disability. Who cares?
Yeah.
So,
or maybe they have a big disability, and who cares, right? It's just it
could be big, or it could be small, but either one, you got to factor all that in. So excellent.
For sure.
All right. So Matt's up on the questionnaire here. We'll bring him up. There he is. What's up, Matt?
Heather,
Hiya.
I'm so proud of you. And the reason that is because you swore that you would never do this, not 3 months ago.
I know. Well,
but
growth
here
comes
you
from
are.
discomfort, and I'm ready for it. So here we are.
Way to go, Heather. Good job.
So what changed your mind?
I think that I've come out the other side of fire, and you want to share that knowledge back to help other people who are looking at going back to school or struggling with transitions. I learned a lot, and if I could help somebody else, then that was worth it.
Are you happy that you've done this?
I'll be happier when it's over.
10 more minutes, Heather. Hang in there. 10 more minutes.
Heather,
This
I
is the
just want
hot
to say,
seat part. These are when the random questions from the audience come in.
you're doing great. Like this has been really phenomenal. Like it's been really phenomenal, the things that you shared. So you're doing great.
Yep. Yeah, you are. Really are. Great advice that you shared. Great examples. So, and it crosses all genders. So it's not just all for women. I mean, there's a lot of advice for everybody. So it's awesome. So Matt, you have a question for her?
That was my question.
That was your question.
Oh, just how was she doing? Okay, excellent.
We're good.
I got a
Heather,
question.
do you have any
guys are
questions
both in
for me?
Canada, right?
Yeah, we've never met.
Oh, you're just both in Canada. Okay. I thought all Canadians knew each other.
Yeah,
Well, that's
very
true.
funny.
It's like saying all of
Heather
us
is
know
my-
each other, Corey.
Well, I know. It's like
Canada's a
if I
very
go up
big
there and they're
place.
like, do you know a Bob in the United States? I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
People ask me all the
Heather's my
time, they're like,
oldest and
oh, you're in
dearest friend.
Chicago. You must know this person. And I'm like, Chicago's a big place. That's
Yeah.
not even.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said that,
Million
because
people.
that's probably as Canadians, you get that all the time. Like, what? You're from Canada? Oh. And they
You
throw
know
it out.
so-and-so.
You know
Sometimes
Office
we do, and
Bob?
sometimes like, well, just give me a try. Tell me the name. It might, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe not.
I get that at work when somebody says, you're a Mormon? Oh, I know a Mormon. Do you know him? I'm like, yeah, because there's only 6 of us in the church. Of course I know him.
It's hard. I've lived so many places that I do know a lot of people. I've often thought, I've left like dear friends, and I bawled, and I couldn't even go back to visit sometimes because it hurts so much to miss them. I always thought I want to take a big moving trailer with me and collect all my favorite people, and they would just move with me to all my places, and then I would be happy.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Okay, we got an I am here.
Yes.
We still don't know who or what I am is.
Oh,
We had a glimpse.
No?
Looks like the Cardston Temple.
Okay, we've asked you to unmute, so you'll have to unmute yourself for us to hear you.
Anyone else? We've got 2 people who have their hands raised. So
all right. So we'll
I'm
go.
gonna try for Scott. We'll come back to you. I am.
We'll come back to I am. I think he's having technical difficulties. So
Scott Reynolds.
Take it away, Scott.
Okay, can you? Okay, there we go.
yes. Where'd you go?
Corey, you said something that got me thinking, and I want to ask Heather what she would advise. I 5 years ago, I was a successful programmer and I was doing great and had my 5-year plan ahead of me. And then all of a sudden I got pneumonia and I've got I got nerve damage and I've got chronic pain now. And my boss came to me and said, he thanked me for getting sick because all of a sudden he was thinking, okay, what would he do if he had died? But nobody plans on what are you going to do if you get disabled. And I'm kind of halfway in between not being able to work and not being able to, I don't know where I'm at. So my question is I was for a while, I was just having a hard time thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow. So what would you say to somebody to transition, to make that transition? Because I'm now divorced. My divorce came out of the disability. I'm disabled. I'm going back to school now, but I like what you said about carrying the balls, because there are a lot of things I don't know how I'm going to survive. And so I guess I'm just asking for your advice and some wisdom.
Scott, what I would say to you is to figure out and focus on the things that you can do, because there are many. I know the things that you can't do this and you can't do that, so you feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But in that place, you'll find things that you can do, and that's where you'll find your joy and your purpose. Are you still there?
Is that good, Scott? Did we lose you?
You can unmute yourself, Scott. If
There you
wanna
go.
respond.
Oh yeah, you guys
Yeah.
muted me. But yeah,
We did. Okay.
Thank you.
But just take some time, make a list. I can do this, like top 30 things. Because if you make your list really long, you start putting, your top 10, you don't, but if you just start writing down everything, like verbal diarrhea, I can do all these things. And then you find from which of those you have a passion for. What things do I enjoy doing of all these things that I can do? And build your life from there. You're not surrounded or defined by I can'ts.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One last
Excellent.
question.
Sure.
Are you into long distance relationships?
I have to be. I'm in Canada. I designed my career to be.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Everett in the chat was like smooth. I was going to say the same thing. Smooth, Scott, smooth. Okay, so we should try I am one more time. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Or not.
Is there anyone else that has any questions while we're waiting?
Oh, it's unmuted now.
Sorry.
I think we're good.
There you go. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I have a really nasty cold right now, so I look like worse than a witch's wart right now. So I didn't want to put myself or subject everybody to my look. But
No worries.
my question to you, actually to Heather and everybody else, is mostly about the opportunity to learn from the experiences that we've had, especially previous marriage or marriages. So what is the biggest take that you can take, that you have gained insight from, having been through that experience? And what is it that you yourself are going to do differently in a new relationship? That's all I have
That's a
to say.
really good question. And actually a question I've been asked before by my classmates who were like 19 and 20 years old at the time. They asked me a very similar question. They say, oh, you're divorced and you're like 20 years older than me. What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out with love? And I said to him, what I learned is that I will never convince or try to convince someone to be with me. Doesn't matter if I love them or not. That if they want to be there, they'll be there. And they would also have the confidence and the knowledge, assured knowledge that I am there because I want to be there. Not because somebody tried to convince somebody else. So that's would be my biggest advice that I've learned through my marriage and through my divorce, is to just let it play out. The people who want to be in your life will be there. And
Don't
if they
settle.
don't want to be there, let them go.
Yeah.
Don't settle. Do not settle. It will not end well.
Yeah, for sure.
Great answer
That's great.
and great question. So thanks for that, I am. I hope you feel better. Hope it's
Yeah,
not
feel
COVID.
better. Get well soon.
Stay
I
isolated.
had a really bad
please.
cold and it was COVID, so
Yeah,
careful.
please stay isolated. Our hospitals can't handle it.
Yeah. All right, so we got Nick.
Oh,
we
unmute
got-
yourself, Nick. There you go. Yeah. We can't hear you yet.
There we go.
Awesome.
I grew up in Calgary, so Canada is a great place, but I live in Phoenix. But the question I have is the transition. I guess you probably co-parent with your ex-husband.
No, I do not.
Oh, you do not? Okay,
No.
so I guess I won't ask that question.
You can ask it anyway. It might apply
Well,
to
I know.
someone else who's
I
listening.
was just going to say that, you know, when you transition, I guess falling out of love, I guess, but people sort of answered that. How do you let go and move on, right?
You pray
But
for
maybe
it.
you pray for it. Okay, perfect.
You do. I remember the day, like I'm talking my best friend here, and I remember the day I saw him and I thought, wow, he's no longer attractive to me. And what a blessing that was. What an answer to prayer that was, because it helps heal when you look at that person and go, yeah, that's done. And you pray for it. You pray for that healing.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, everybody's like been through that. And I think when I said my prayers, it was the first time I had asked for the atonement to take my pain away. Like that was, instead of my sin
Yeah.
away, it was take this horrible feeling away. And it was like every night for a few weeks until I started feeling normal again.
Because the reason I bring it up is obviously when you transfer kids, you see them and you chat with them, you're friendly, of course, and that stuff. That just always brings back memories. So it brings back the pain,
So
right?
what you can do is, prior to seeing your ex, is what are you going to say? What are you going to do? Play it out in your head. Know your responses so that nothing's taken by surprise. You can
You can even practice with a friend.
yeah, so that when you disengage, I guess.
Mhm.
Don't try to engage. Make sure play gray rock. You're not interested, you have nothing interesting to say. You're just there to make the transition pleasant and friendly for the sake of the kids, but you're not trying to find out about their life and they're not finding out about yours.
Well, good. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
It's rough. I feel for you. You'll be okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, hang in there, Nick. I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for asking the question. All right. We're about out of time here. Any last calls for questions before we call the podcast a night?
We have 1 minute. Like I'm counting.
Terry's
Speak
not that
now
Terry's not
or
paying attention. to
forever
calm down
hold
or
your peace, right?
I'm hungry, okay?
she wants to after hours or after show. So
Yeah.
well, great. This was awesome, Heather. You did such a great job tonight. So I don't know why you were nervous. Like
Because I
you did an
am.
awesome job. You had great advice. I have a real strong feeling she's gonna get a lot of DMs and some friend requests after tonight.
That's not the purpose.
No, it isn't. But you're very charming, and you had a lot of great advice, and you're very kind, and so I think that comes across, and I think that people are naturally going to want to gravitate to you. So that's why I said it.
All right.
I know it's not the purpose, but it's just probably an accidental byproduct. But yeah, it was a
I'll
great
let you know,
topic.
Corey. I'll give you the stats.
She'll come back and be like, so just so you know, this is
We
when
have a follow-up show when Heather comes on and tells her all the guys.
I'll say
that hit it
Corey's
off.
dead wrong. I had 0.
Then we could be sisters.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, same. But there was a lot of really, I think you shared a lot of really good things about how to transition healthily, like how to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and planning for the future and working with your kids. And you covered like a lot of bases that are really important to a lot of people. So it's good.
Right.
Sometimes it's just a matter of where do I start? So,
Mhm.
you
And
know,
that's the part where you go to war with the armor you have. You just start.
yeah, you just
There's
do.
never going to be a perfect time for anything in your life,
No.
really.
No.
So the time's going to pass. So just go. Your time is valuable. You're wasting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on.